Hi, guys. I'm very excited to get this edition out. I've been trying to get this guest on the cast since season one, and it's only now that we've been able to get this done. He's a former disciple of the late Grandmaster Li Kun Hong of the Chole Foot Kung Fu. He is current disciple of Master Chao Kern of Tai Sing Pekar Moon. With his 30 plus years of immersion in the martial arts world, he is adamant about keeping Kung Fu relevant by teaching its true martial meaning. With hundreds of students, both domestic and international, he travels frequently to keep them up to the same standards that his teachers have placed on him. Please welcome my Kung Fu brother, and by the end of this interview, you too will be able to say, I know Joe Keit. Sifu Joe Keit, how you doing, sir?
What's up, brother? How you doing? Good to be here.
Oh, man. Man, I'm so happy to have you here. You have no idea, brother. No idea.
And thank you for that amazing introduction. I was like, wow. Nice to sometimes look back and go, hey, not too bad. 30 years.
But you know what the thing about it is, it's all true. And I've left out stuff. You know I've left out stuff too. All right. So let's go ahead and get straight into the interview so we can get to know you and get to know a little bit of your insights. All right, Joe? So Let's go with the first question. How did you start the martial arts, Joe?
My mother really got me started. She and my father got divorced. I was about 5 years old. And at that time, there was a kid who got kidnapped. It was a very famous case. It was Adam Walsh. And he got kidnapped in a mall or something like that. And his father now is very famous, like an advocate for missing children. I think he does a lot of different television shows. John Walsh, very, very famous guy. So because of that, my mom wanted me to be able to, defend myself, but also gain some confidence and also be around a male role figure since my father was gone, So it was with karate. And I had no idea what was going on, but I just felt like I was a superhero. We had the gis and everything. We're punching and kicking. So that really planted a seed for me, and I wasn't in for very long because we were poor. We were dirt poor, After my parents got divorced, it was rough for a long time. But that's really how it got started. Have to thank my mom really for it, Yeah, I can continue if you want me to continue on the path of all the next things.
Yeah, please, let us know. Let me know, my friend. Enlighten me.
So that's why, I really think, if you're a parent out there, it's really important to put your kid into martial arts and get them in some kind of structure. But it's very important to really investigate the instructor, just like you do when you buy a house. You don't just buy a house because it's the color you like. You actually pay someone to go there and check for every little problem with the house before you actually buy it. But yet, when we sign our children up for a martial arts school, we just dump them in there because, obviously it must be karate because it says it right on the wall, So it's really important. I think you and me both have had good instructors and bad instructors and been involved with, many different schools. So it's very important first to pick the right one. But that influence for a child is a seed that can be planted. So for me, I don't know what it was, but I just started watching Bruce Lee movies, watching the Shaw Brother Kung Fu movies. I was just very enamored by Kung Fu. I felt like Kung Fu or martial arts in general was this path to be a superhero, to, almost like Superman. So I just spent a lot of time in the bookstores, instead of reading comic books, I was reading martial art books, whether it was Kung Fu, karate, even the ninjas were really popular when I was younger. So that really made a huge influence, And then what had happened is we were moving around a lot, and my mom was using her sister's address so I could go to a good school. And then I would go to a daycare, but it just became impossible. So we were living in a really cheap 1-bedroom apartment in a bad neighborhood. And my mom's like, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to go to this middle school, starting for 6th grade. I was like, okay, no problem. Because I watched her suffer. I saw how hard it was for her. And she really, gave me a lot. She made me believe I can do anything. She was a mother and a father at times, and really powerful in my life, So I was, of course, like, whatever you want. So I started going to school, and I was into breakdancing at the time. So I had a lot of friends, and I was like, yeah, this is not so bad. But then every Friday when you're walking home, it was Cracker Day, where the black kids would go beat up all the white kids, So I was like, oh man, this is crazy. So I avoided it as much as I could. And it was like, you might be friends with these people in the daytime, but when it came Friday, it was groups of them, and it was usually like 5 or 6 on one, you know. So I was like, I have to learn how to defend myself, you know. So I had been wanting to do martial arts. So my mother, I think, and my aunt got together, paid for me, and I went back to Taekwondo. And that was a really good experience. The guy was a Korean war vet. You know, that's where I really got my first taste of sparring, and, you know, the structure and the discipline and the training, you know, and I was like really serious. So every Friday we were duking it out. I started standing up for myself, you know, and at times it was pretty scary. At times it escalated pretty high where the principal would get involved, you know, and, but, you know, it wasn't about black and white. It was about bullying. It was about, you know, having confidence or standing up for yourself. So a lot of these same kids I was fighting with became like my really good friends afterwards, you know, and I look at that opportunity and experience as a good one, as like today, like, you know, no one's going to really allow that kind of stuff to happen, right? It's going to be lawsuits and all kinds of crazy stuff. But, you know, I feel like we are the last generation that really had to suffer hardcore like that, you know? And I've had students who have been bullied too, and then they come to my school and, you know, like you said, I like to teach the martial aspect of it. Like we let our kids fight, you know, I wouldn't say full contact, even though it gets pretty hard at times, but it's continuous, and there's grappling, and there's jujitsu, and it's everything, you know. We want them to know everything. So when these kids that are students of mine get into a fight, it's awesome to hear them say, like, you know, oh yeah, just took care of it really quick, you know, like it was nothing. Because in training, you know, you're more afraid of your training partners. Most people on the street don't really know how to fight, you know, because most martial artists fight enough to know that it's not worth fighting, you know. So that was a really pivotal experience for me. I gained a lot of confidence out of it, you know. But again, after a couple of years, my family couldn't afford it, so I stopped going. And I really wanted to learn Kung Fu by this time. I had just been reading about it. I knew there was so much more, you know, philosophy and deep, you know, something really deep about it. And I needed to know what it was, rather than just like the crane style can defeat the snake style, like how, you know, when we watch Kung Fu movies. You know? So I went to Fred Villari's Kempo karate, because it said karate, Kung Fu, judo, but it was basically all mixed together, and it was Kempo. I didn't really, that was my first experience with Kempo and understanding what Kempo was, but I didn't like it, so I didn't stay. And then I got into Kung Fu. I was probably 15 or 16 years old, and it was Professor James Craven's Chinese Boxing Institute International. And he was teaching what they had learned from some Sifus in Taiwan. So there was a group of Chinese Sifus that got together after, you know, they left communist China, and they would train, I guess, in the same area. So we primarily were doing Wing Chun and Tai Chi. But I actually did Tai Chi before I did Kung Fu. So Tai Chi would be my first Chinese martial arts style that I've actually practiced. And so we were learning form, push, hands. But, you know, in Wing Chun, we were learning different fighting techniques. There was Chin Na. There was all this, like, you know, introduction into different elements of styles, like Bakwa Xing Yi, you know, different things like that. So it was like, wow, being like an all-you-can-eat buffet, you know, like getting a little taste of each thing. And then a lot of people would pursue private lessons to kind of further their knowledge. But again, I was, you know, working part-time and paying out of my own pocket for this. So I was there a very short time, maybe a year and a half. And then I think it was 1993, my Chinese friends were telling me about the Lee Kun Hung school. And, oh, there's this really famous Sifu. He's the real deal from Hong Kong. They showed me the Chinese newspaper article. I saw it, and I was just like, I don't want to spend any money. Because for me, it's I usually float between martial arts and music. So I had been playing in bands, and you know, I was either really into that or really into the martial arts. You know, never usually doing both at the same time. So then I got into this band that almost got famous. I think I told you about it, Tension. It was like hardcore band. And now the drummer's playing in Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. One of our bass players is playing in Newfound Glory. Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, that's the same band that you sometimes post those little clips on Instagram about with you playing, right? Great.
I used to do
that's some hardcore stuff.
Yeah, I do backflips with my guitar into the audience and crazy stuff, you know. So it was a wonderful experience, you know. But I told the singer about this Kung Fu school, because we were talking about fighting and martial arts and Kung Fu. And I had gone to the Lee Kun Hung school, I want to say maybe 6 to 8 months before I even joined. And I would go maybe once every 2 or 3 months just to watch. But every time I would go to watch, they were doing forms. And I would sit there and watch this poor guy do this some G count down, the old one where you kick and you do the three bows. And I just sitting there for 20 minutes watching this guy, and I'm like, what is this stuff? Like I just didn't really, I wasn't impressed, I gotta be honest. So then I brought my friend from the band, and Lee Kun Hung was there. And I was like, this guy looks kind of familiar. I didn't recognize the name, So we're talking, and he seemed really cool. And he's like, just do a couple of private lessons. It's $10, 2 20-minute lessons. I was like, $10, that's pretty good. Sure, gave him my money. I went home, looking through the magazines. He's all over the magazines, different things about him. He was in a few books I had. And then I even had the Duel of the Seven Tigers. So now I'm like, oh man, this guy's legit, like, okay. So like, I knew about this guy as I was younger, but I was into so many things. So I went there the next day, and it was just an amazing experience. He was just like, punch me. I'm like, punch you? Like, what do you mean? And then after a while, I was really trying to hit this guy, and he just so effortlessly knocked me out of the way with the pak sao, coming in. And then he showed me how to defend against the kick. And, he was showing me not just the technique, but how to really do it, and to do it without, do it with reflexes, do it like, not just blocking, so. And I was just really impressed with how this guy was able to get us to do things. So we came for our second class. He started showing us basic one with more of a traditional forms, with the stances and the punching. And he was trying to explain how this really is the way we punch and how you can develop it. And I was like, wow. Then he showed us a tacking drill. And he was really good at showing why we do the form this is how we do it when we fight, like the contrast of it. Like, because what we do in our form obviously is very exaggerated, perfect world, but fighting it obviously is not, So I was like, this guy's the shit, I'm in. So we signed up, me and my friend from my band. And, after I signed up, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm not leaving, And I stayed for 17 years, So that was the foundation right there, And then obviously there's a lot more stuff I've been doing, We can talk about it if you want. I don't want to waste all your time though.
No problem. So that's the story of how you came up to how you came to become a student, a disciple of Grandmaster Lee Kun Hung. So how did you come into contact with Master Chow Kern?
Well, I don't know if anyone really is a disciple of Lee Kun Hung. We all are students of him. So, when people throw that word, that usually means you've done like a tea ceremony and things like that. And this is a very personal kind of thing. He wanted to do that with us, Lee Kun Hung. And it was sad because when we knew he was sick and we weren't sure, I never thought he was going to pass away, but he was explaining what he wanted to do. And that was going to be one of the things, is do that ceremony. He did something like that with John Wei, my Kung Fu brother. He made him like godson. But again, that's like very family. It was more of a, they were so grateful at the time that he was helping out. And, obviously he was happy to have a mentor like Lee Kun Hung. But when Lee Kun Hung passed away, we had no idea what was going to happen. You know what I mean? And at first, John Wei became the Sifu of the school. And then, something happened between him and the Lee Kun Hung family. And he was gone. And then Lee Su Hung took over, who's Lee Kun Hung's younger brother. So I stayed and helped him, and a lot of us really just at the time wanted to make sure that, the school would continue and go on. But of course, Lee Su Hung and Lee Kun Hung are two different people, and Lee Kun Hung had his way, Lee Su Hung had his way. So a lot of people, eventually dropped off, including myself. It took me about 15 years though. But for me, I had to really think of a career. That's why I became a firefighter and stuff like that. But it was just an amazing time to be there. A lot of self-learning, you know what I mean? Because when you're presented with a situation and there's no answer, you have to find the answer. Whereas with Lee Kun Hung, we always had the answer. You know what I mean? So sometimes I think of that as a good thing, because it allows me to protect my students or offer more answers to my students. And a lot of it is real tough experience. Not somebody told me. No, I had to experience this by making the mistake about 5 or 6 times until I finally got it right. So with Lee Su Hung, we started traveling around, doing tournaments, teaching at different workshops. I would find people that, that learned Chole Phut maybe briefly from Lee Kun Hung, and we would go reconnect with them and start teaching them. So that was really cool. And we started going to Hong Kong, meeting some of Lee Kun Hung's other students, who I got eventually able to train with, and, really learned a lot of stuff from them, because a lot of them were really super serious about it. And they were pretty much all doing the same thing, whereas we were a little different. So I really got to learn a lot of Chole Phut theory and fighting and form things from them as well. But Lee Kun Hung had talked a lot about many masters. So of course, that was really exciting. And for me, I learned Chinese very quickly just because I was so excited to talk to them and to learn from them, you know. And Lee Si Hung as well too. He liked to talk a lot of different things. But when Lee Kun Hung would talk a lot, he would talk about Tai Sing Pek War. He would talk about Chen Xiaochong, who is considered the Monkey King. And he talked about an alliance that was formed, like a fighting team between Chen Xiaochong, Lee Kun Hung, and Wang Xianglong, who is the Sihing of Bruce Lee. He's actually the real teacher of Bruce Lee, Wang Xianglong. He didn't really learn much from Yip Man. As you know, the Sihings of the school are the unsung heroes. That's who you really are learning from. You know, you learn from your Sifu, then you must be pretty high level if it's a popular school with many people. So they had a fighting team, and he would talk about that, and he had this really respect for Northern style, which I did not understand, because when we would go to tournaments, a lot of the Northern style I saw, fighting and sparring was okay, but like I didn't really like the forms. I felt they were like kind of like dancing, you know. It just wasn't my flavor, you know? Like, no disrespect, but it just wasn't the thing I liked. So, but he would talk about Tai Sing Pek War once in a while, as well as Lee Si Hung. He would talk about that. So on a trip to Hong Kong in 2000, we met Chen Xiaochong and a group of people, and I sat down right next to Chao Kern, and we just had a blast. He couldn't speak any English, but at that time I was speaking Chinese pretty decent, and just had a great time, talk about a lot of different things, and just funny. Like, we didn't talk about Kung Fu. Like, when I hang out with Kung Fu people, Kung Fu, and oh, this master and that, like, nothing like that. Just hilarious, funny, normal stuff. You know what I mean? So I liked that. I felt like a connection. And then I think, I don't know, 4 or 5 months later, they came to Orlando, and they were at the tournament 2000 that was held at that time. And that's when I got to really see them all do Kung Fu. And I was like, wow, they're pretty good, man. I like their stuff. It looked like how I felt our stuff looked like, you know, like very powerful and strong, and like, yeah, I could see how this would work. And then when Chao Kern showed Kung Fu, I was floored. I was like, whoa, you know, and he's just a perfectionist. And, you know, the different thing with him is the way his face would change and his eyes would change, you know, and he was just very in touch with everything that he was doing. And then we had them come to our school and perform again and again. It was just like, I was like, man, we got to learn from this guy. So we were asking, you know, Lisa, like, hey, you think you'll show us some stuff? And he's, yeah, sure. And that's when our friendship began there. And we started learning, you know, we brought him over for workshops and seminars. And then I started going to Hong Kong every year. And at first it was just like for fun, like, let me learn something that Chole Phut either doesn't have or is not very good at. Because, I love Chole Phut, but it seems like now a lot of the weapon forms are just a hand form with a weapon in your hand, you know? So it's like, you know, like if I were to say to you, oh, I'm just going to take this cell phone right now and make a form, you know? And, oh yeah, see, and then with a bow, and like, you know, why not go to a real expert and learn how to do it, you know? That way you have the real knowledge rather than just making it up, you know? So that's kind of how I feel about a lot of Southern weapon forms. And it's probably due to the nature of, in the past, Southern style not having a lot of money, being farmers, being militia. But again, like, when you think about that situation, I don't think they were sitting around making up forms. I think they were worried about protecting their life or fighting for their government, you know. So what had happened is, like, I was learning all these different sets. I'd go over there. He's like, what do you want to learn? And again, I'm only there 2 weeks at a time. So for me, I just feel like this is extracurricular, like fun, you know. I'm not like super serious about it, you know. I'm serious, you know. I'm serious because I'll come home and I'll train like crazy, but I do it for myself, you know. I'm not like I'm gonna go around bragging that I'm some Tai Sing Pek War master or something. That was not my intention to do that. But while I was there, I would learn maybe 1 or 2 things, and then he'd be like, "What are you doing today?" I'm like, "I'm here for you. What do you want to do?" "Oh, I have a private lesson coming in at like 3 o'clock. Can you help me out?" And then another one at 5. "Can you help me out?" I'm like, help you out how? You're the man, you know, like your Kung Fu is ridiculous. He's like, no. They don't speak Chinese. They only speak English. So here you have, and they were Chinese from America that were there trying to study Cantonese or Mandarin, but they can't understand Sifu Chao Kern. So Chao Kern's talking to me in Chinese, and then I'm talking to this person in English, and you see them like, oh man, you're American and you can speak Chinese, and I'm Chinese and I can't even speak Chinese. So it was funny, but at the same time, it was helping Sifu out. But like they were learning all this other stuff that I didn't know, and he's like, "That's okay. You're very smart. You'll figure it out." So every time I would come home from Hong Kong, my head would be like filled with stuff, and I would have to like go back and review and whatever. And at that time, the Tai Sing Pekar school, I guess they made a big comeback. They moved to Vancouver. Chan Sao Chung, his son was going to teach and all this stuff, but his son was an accountant, you know. And like most smart people, they realized, you know, you can either, you know, go off and try to make real money and have a family, or you can dedicate yourself to the true martial art and be a poor person forever. You know what I mean? So he eventually just stopped doing Kung Fu. And I don't think he really did Kung Fu that long. I think he was only doing it for a few years. A lot of people are like, oh, you know, when they see a relative of the master, they think that person must be of the highest level. But sometimes they don't realize how lucky they are, and they really don't have as much training as you think. So that school shut down. So the only way people could find Tai Sing Pekar was through our website at the time. So a lot of people were contacting me to learn Tai Sing Pekar, and I'm like, okay, here's Sifu Chao Kung's number, here's Chen Sao Chung's number. And then they'd wind up calling me back. Oh, you know, they told me to call you. Oh, what? So I asked Chao Kung, I say, I'm trying to give you business, you know? And he's like, no, go ahead, teach. You know? I was like, teach what? He's like, teach Tai Sing Pekar. These guys make money. Yeah, you're very good. Just do it. So it's like, you want me to teach your Kung Fu? Like, are you serious? Like, because, you know, he would see videos, whatever, that I would give him or YouTube or whatever. And he was very proud of me, but like, that's just like father-son talk. And that's how our relationship became, like father-son, you know? So after listening to him, and he was like serious, like, oh, no, you're one of the guys I want to, you know, pass it on. I'm like, oh shit, you know, I better really take this more serious, you know? And I find that with Chole Phut too a lot, you know, like a lot of Sifu will tell you an answer when they don't have the answer. And I don't like to do that, because then you have to relearn things the right way, which is like, ugh. So when people ask me something I don't know, I'm very good about saying, I don't know, but I will find out for you. Or, you know, let's ask someone else, you know. But yeah, I'm trying to think about where I was going with that. So like with Tai Sing Pekar, I was like, okay, now that you really want me to be like that, I need to be a little bit more serious. Let's go back. Let's learn fundamentals. How is it that you train? What is the fighting applications like? Talk about history sometimes, you know, and different things. Because I learn a lot from conversations at dinner, you know, or like lion dancing. Like I just came back from Brazil, and my, you know, the students over there are very, can you do the eye dotting ceremony? I'm like, sure. Do you have this? They don't have any of that. I'm like, do you think I am like the Ghostbusters? I just walk around with a lion dance like kit in my bag. I'm like, you know, we have to do this the right way, or we could be totally disrespectful. You know, like when you get into like Chinese, you know, ancestral worship or General Kwan and things like that, like either don't do it and just have it as a decoration, and that's fine, and it doesn't affect you. But once you start doing that, you don't do it the right way, you know, you could have some bad luck, you know, and I can speak on it. I can speak from experience on that. So, yeah, a lot of the times I learned was like on the job training, you know, like I would be with Lee Kun Hong, and because I only had one Chinese New Year with him, but like he was like, hey, do this. And I'm like, what is this? There would be like a big bowl of water with money in it. There would be a crab formed out of chopsticks, and then like a little obstacle course to get to it. And then oranges in a formation. I'm like, oh, what is this? And he would explain how to do it, how to, you know, you have to drink the water and spit the water out, eat one orange, toss it, stomp on things, or eat the chopsticks. Like, so I was learning like that, you know, because there's so many complexities, especially since we didn't grow up in that culture. So yeah, like now I'm like wishing, you know, now in this, I didn't know I'd be in this position that I'm in right now, where people are relying on me for a lot of information. So sometimes I wish I would have, you know, did it a little bit more. But like a lot of the people I respect, like Chao Kung or even Wynter Tai, you know, they're like, it's not so much all of these complex things that you're thinking about. It's really what's in your heart that's important as you're doing the thing, whether it's the incense for General Kwan or the eye dotting ceremony. If you're just some fake person, it doesn't mean anything. But if you're doing it with sincerity, it's the energy that you create. And that's really what it's all about, is this positive energy, you know? So yeah, so then I started getting more serious with Tai Sing Pekar, and you know, now my Sifu wanted me to have two classes, a Chole Phut class and a Tai Sing Pekar class. But I really just I just don't have the energy to do that, and also not that I really didn't want to do that. And how do you say, oh, you should do that, you should do this? So what I do is I do it the way I traveled. I teach Chole Phut first, and then as they get better, then I show the Northern style as like an additive, and then we start doing techniques and we do applications. And my theory in fighting is just, the style is called winning. We don't always win, but we eventually will. So whatever it takes to win, we will win. But in my training while I was at the Lee Kuan Yew school, and and we opened up a second school in Boynton and things like that, I was very much working really hard to build a good, strong performance lion dance demo team. So I had them build poles, and we started doing the Muay Fa Jong, and then eventually later we were able to get even higher poles and do that. And that's when we lost all the interest in it because it was just too much, So I built several teams for that, which was a lot of fun, and I'm still very proud of all those accomplishments. And then I was very much into the fighting aspect of it as well. And I got that a lot from another mentor, which was my Sihing Paul Fraga. Paul Fraga, he was a very experienced martial artist already. Like Lee Kuan Yew was very smart. He picked all the people that had martial art experience already and made them instructor very quickly. You know what I mean? And his whole idea was to create an army of Kung Fu within a very short period of time. So in his 3 years, that's all he was really here for, was 3 years. So in his 3 years of being in Florida, he taught very, very fast. And he was trying to build this army of fighters and performers, and as awesome as it was, it also led to some problems of people just trying to collect forms and not really paying attention to certain things. Because obviously he came at it like, going to war. Because imagine being a foreigner, can't speak the language in another country, and you're about to just gamble everything on your skill as a martial artist. It's a very stressful thing. I understand that stress a lot more now, But yeah, really, really insane. So I felt as a coach, I had to get better at fighting and things like that. So Paul showed me a lot of Sanshao. When I finally could beat Paul in sparring, it was a wonderful day because this guy would just thrash me, and I finally I would punch this guy straight in the face, and he would just laugh. You know what I mean? Like what an awesome Sihing. I love seeing Sifu Gilly Miller. He's another awesome, fun guy. Always has my back. Will do anything. He'll work. He'll fight. He'll win. He'll lose. He don't care. He'll just do it. And then Sihing Ao Chang was another one. He was always fun. Always want to work out hard. We'd fight, beat each other up. Sihing Lou Fisher, he's just phenomenal. And he got into the internal arts, but he had that knowledge of being a fighter already. So whatever he said, I always would listen to and respect. And then these guys are so good to me, and I was so happy to be able to give back to them later as I was training all the time, like 6, sometimes 7 days a week, going to Hong Kong, doing all these things while these guys all had jobs. So I was able to, pass on the things and pay back to them all the mentoring that they gave me. But Paul Fraga introduced me to jiu-jitsu. After I could beat him up once in sparring, he's like, you want to try something different? I was like, let's go. He's like, just try to stop me. So he came in, bam, I punched him in the face. He took me to the ground, and within 10 seconds, I was tapping out. I didn't know what the hell happened to me. And then another instructor who was really good, Ken, he did the same thing. He got tapped out quick. Another instructor, he got tapped out. He got up. No, this is not Chole Phut. He didn't want anything to do with it, But we were like, well, we got to learn this, and we just learned as much as we could from Paul. And for a while, I felt like I was indestructible, man. Like people would come into the Boynton Beach school and let's go. You want to fight? Let's go. I'd take them to the ground, choke them out, Or these high school wrestlers found out about what we were doing, and they would come in and they would try to get cocky, and I would just choke them all out. Little did I know, I didn't really know much, So I had a student fighting Sanshao who was like undefeated. He wanted to go pro. And I said, okay, do like Muay Thai, but don't do MMA because that's, you don't know jiu-jitsu. Mine is not really that good, So he got set up by a matchmaker to, make whatever American Top Team look good. And he lost his first fight. He lost the second fight. I started having friends that knew jiu-jitsu contact me like, what are you doing? What's going on? Why you have your fighter in there, And I told them the situation. So they all started coming to the school for free to train us. And then they started bringing a black belt, and then we would pay this black belt. And that's where they kind of continued a little bit and fell out, but I fell in love with jiu-jitsu and kept training and training and training. And then I would go to their different schools and stuff like that because it was really hard to bring another instructor into a school and, with money. And it just was a little bit of a problem and a headache. But I fell in love with jiu-jitsu because of all of that. And today I have a brown belt in it, even though I have a very bad brown belt, unpracticed. But it's still an accomplishment. It's still something I'm very, happy and proud of. And, been able to train with a lot of different awesome Sifus and masters. And sometimes just one little idea can totally change the course of your thinking or your martial art abilities, whether it's Chen Tai Chi, Wing Chun, I've done some Mantis. I love also the stuff we have from, Sekin, Mr. Han from Enter the Dragon. I always love the spear set and the hand set from that. But, I really love it all. It's been a wonderful experience.
I tell you, Joe, when I said in the intro that you have 30 plus years of immersion into the martial arts world, with everything that you just said, you just proved me right.
I'm trying not to talk too much.
No, don't worry, but it's great. It's great. It shows how much experience you have in martial arts, right? So with all of that experience already established, let's ask you this, Joe. Yeah. What is Tai Sing Pek War? For somebody who absolutely knows nothing about Kung Fu, what is Tai Sing Pek War?
I would say Tai Sing Pek War would be the name of a school, because a lot of people get it confused, And unfortunately in the martial arts, there's a lot of people that didn't think the internet was going to be invented one day. So Tai Sing Pek War does not mean monkey kung fu. A lot of people, let's start with that. It doesn't mean monkey kung fu. Tai Sing Pek War, Tai Sing refers to the Monkey King, the great sage. So when you look at the character Tai Sing, it's like big star, or it really means great sage. So it refers to the Monkey King. Pek War refers to the techniques. Pek means like chopping. Gua would be like almost like a bujong. It's like a hanging punch, So we'll start with Pek War. Pek War used to be one style, Pek War, or Pik Gua Men in Mandarin. Okay, it comes from this region of China where Baji and Tongbei are all kind of intermixed together, and probably at one time came from the same source. But what happened with Pik Gua is it split into palm and fist. Okay, Pek Gua Kun, Pek Gua Jern. So, when it comes to Chinese Kung Fu in China, I always have to think about it with a grain of salt, because I don't know how accurate it is with the involvement of Beijing Wushu and the Communist Party takeover, and also the Qing Dynasty with the outlawing of Kung Fu. So Kung Fu was much more popular in the South, even Northern styles. Like Tai Sing Pek War is flourished because it went South. If it would have stayed up North, it probably wouldn't exist right now. So I don't, I look at like with the China Kung Fu in China, and I have to go, okay, is it new or old? I really don't know. I just look at it, quality or good or bad is how I do it. But I see a lot of similarities with Pek War Palm and Pek War Kun. So basically from the wrist to the body is the same, but the hand might change, So our founder for Tai Sing Pek War for the school's name is Gan Da Koi. Gan Da Koi's father was his teacher, his Sifu. Now, it wasn't like a Kung Fu school, like where everybody's training Kung Fu and that's the purpose of going there. It was actually like an armed escort service. You know what I mean? Like security. So he was training his security guards and the people that were working in there. You know what I mean? It's changed over the years. Even the Monkey Fist movie, like Chen Chung made this movie, I'm sure they, made it more of a movie style than the reality. So Gan Da Koi grew up learning Kung Fu from his father. And there was a guy that came in that was hiding from the police, and they became friendly. They allowed him to stay and wear the uniform, so it looked like he was a worker. And the police left, and he was cool. So he thanked them, left, and then he wound up getting arrested. This guy's name was Kao Se. Kao Se, he knew how to fight. He was kind of like he could box, but he also knew a lot of like wrestling and ground fighting. So we call it Bei Tong. Okay, so he had this Datong northern style, and he had like Shui Jiao or Shut Gao, like wrestling techniques. So he got locked up and spent time in prison, and he'd work out and train a little bit, but his pastime was just watching monkeys. So he developed several monkey personalities. And when I say that, I don't mean forms. I mean like he would be like lost, he might be like drunk, he came up with all these little different personalities just to keep himself entertained, but also to keep his body limber and training. And then he started thinking about the martial aspect of it as he saw monkeys fighting either other monkeys or other animals. And when he eventually left, he had, I want to say 5, maybe 6, but really it's 5, 5 monkey personalities. And when he came back, Gan Da Koi's father had passed away, and Gan Da Koi was in charge. So he stayed with Gan Da Koi. and started teaching him kung fu. Started teaching him De Tong, teaching him monkey stuff, and he stayed there for for whatever time. And that's where we got the monkey from. So we really only have 5 monkey sets and a staff. There's nothing else really. So Ganda Koi eventually, no longer did that business anymore. He was traveling around and doing different things. And he would get together with other fighters and cross-train. So we have a Maizong Kun, but it's not the exact same as a Maizong style would be. He took out elements that he didn't like and put in pekar. You know what I'm saying? We have Baji or Bakit Kun, but it's very much performed pekar style. That's a later thing from Chen Xiaochang, I believe. But so this element of like taking what's good and throwing away what's bad, like Bruce Lee says, is exactly what Ganda Koi was doing. We also have a lot of Lin Wan Mun in our style. I would say maybe as much as pekar or even more. So a lot of our spears, a lot of our straight edge swords are Lin Wan style, which means like continuously attacking. So very, very aggressive, very, very cool, very interesting. We also have Lohan. So it's almost like Bak Siu Lam, right? When you say Bak Siu Lam, a lot of people think it's a style, but it's a generic term for a collection of styles and techniques put together, and it's just one name that references it. So we use Taiseng Pekar as a name that references a house of the personal experiences and expressions of Ganda Koi and also Chen Xiaochang. Because Chen Xiaochang is really the only person passing it on from Ganda Koi. Ganda Koi had many students, but he didn't stay around a lot of places. And then he would teach in Shanghai at the Qin Wu School, very famous, where Hu Yin Jia, whatever. And he also has something to do with the Northern Shaolin people too, because you'll find some of our sets in there, And then he was brought down to Guangzhou and into Hong Kong by Lam Saiwing, Hong Gar. And he lived with Lam Zhou and Lam Saiwing. And Lam Saiwing was like, dude, this guy is like the legit, because he also trained the military, and I'll tell you about that in a second. He's like, this guy's legit, get him in here and learn whatever you can from him. So Hong Gar, from that lineage, has Pekar Dan Do, Gao Jiao Quan. They even have some of the hand forms. They have a lot of little different things, And before Ganda Koi had to leave, when they were trying to get rid of probably the last emperor of China, I might be wrong with my years, he was brought in to help the Chinese military fight the Japanese, because they were having an issue that when they ran out of bullets, they were pulling out swords, and the katana of the Japanese soldiers was just cutting right through their blades. So they're having a hard time. So they're trying to gather all the kung fu teachers together, come up with some idea to help when it came to, swords or hand-to-hand combat. So after hearing all of their things, Ganda Koi developed the double-handed broadsword, which is basically a daido with a shorter handle. And he's like, instead of blocking their weapon, never block their weapon, cut their arms. So if they come at you, you're going to cut the arms. If they come at you, you can either go after them or you can sidestep. So the whole set is teaching all the different cuts, and it's like Northern style. It's like in a line, and it's just really incredible, So I like that. And they also had another idea that made him famous, which was they were saying, hey, all the Japanese are camped out on the beach, and they're looking at how many numbers there are. He's like, all right, well, here's an idea. Have all the Chinese soldiers take off their shirts. When you go down there at night, no light, whoever has a shirt on, just go ahead and cut their throat, kill them. So he did that. So when the communist takeover came, he was probably one of the people that had to leave, because they look, all the kung fu people really followed Chiang Kai-shek, and the nationalists, and they either went to Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, America, whatever, Canada, Australia. So Ganda Koi went to Hong Kong, and when he went to Hong Kong, Chen Xiaochang became his student. And, first he was just learning pekar. He wanted to learn monkey. And Ganda Koi is like, nah, these kids today, we're talking 1950s, these kids today don't know what hard work really is. They can't do it. So, I don't know, I guess Chen Xiaochang's uncle, please, he really wants to. And he liked Chen Xiaochang. Okay, no problem. Here's your first lesson. He tied his hands and feet behind his back, put him on a table, pushed him off the table. He landed on the ground. All his teeth came out. So Chen Xiaochang used to take his teeth out and show it to me. That was his first monkey kung fu lesson. But yeah. So then I think Ganda Koi made Chen Xiaochang also train with a Shui Jiao teacher that was friendly with him, and also a Wudong or Modong teacher So we have a lot of sets from Modong. We have a lot of applications from Shuijiao. And so it just makes Tyson Pekar this really interesting mix of things. But there's this underlying flavor that Chen Chong Ganda Koi has set. And obviously Chao Kern for me, to me, he's just awesome. But, I prefer learning with him more, because he's just a perfectionist. He's also an artist. He would paint movie posters on the big billboards that you see when you're driving. He'd paint them by hand. And he's a calligrapher. Wow. Yeah, he's just insane, dude. So that's really what Tyson Pekar is. And I get a lot of questions about, even from you and other people about, is this person really Tyson Pekar? Is this really? There are several monkey styles out there, and I've never been interested really since I was a kid in monkey until I think I only learned monkey kung fu from my Sifu maybe 7 years ago. Because people kept saying, hey, he's famous for monkey. Why don't you learn monkey? And I was like, because I'm a grown man. I don't feel like rolling around the ground, And I had learned Mojong Tukao, which is the one where your arms are tied together. And man, it's not easy. You have to do all these kicks and get up without using your hands, So now I never really asked for, hey, can you show me? I'd rather stand up, So I learn it for the kids now, But then I learned monkey, because he demonstrated to me the effectiveness of it. And I was like, okay, I had to understand, why do you do this? I couldn't just blindly follow him. Oh, he's Sifu and I have to follow him. I wanted to know why do you do this? What's the purpose of this, And then I was really bad at it. So at first he's like, don't show it until you get it better. Then we related it to lion dancing, and that actually helped me. That was a really interesting training session. But what happened a long time ago is somebody plagiarized a book that Chen Xiaocheng had wrote in the 60s or 70s, I think. And now all of a sudden Tyson Pekar existed in other places with phony lineages and different things like that. And we're seeing generations and generations of people that have learned from those lineages that might not be the person that, did the damage, but they are, they're doing something that is not from where Tyson Pekar came from. And I don't want to start stuff really online, but when Chen Xiaocheng came over here, he mentioned one person in particular that he wanted me to call and have a challenge match for for stealing all the information and stuff like that. So it was bad, man. It was like an old, and he was serious. He was not joking around. These guys are they're hardcore, they're not joking around. So, and then the other issue too is I have a lot of friends that do Hongar and Northern Shaolin, and they how I do Kung Fu. So they're like, hey, can you help us with our Pekar Gando? And I'll look at it, and sometimes I don't even recognize the movements. You know what I mean? So how do you say to someone well, let's just start from the very beginning, or, hey, that's just great, because it's a lot of work, or you don't want to offend anyone, or, maybe they're doing it right because maybe they're following what their Sifu taught them. Who am I to say that your Sifu is wrong? You know what I mean? That's your personal choice, who you want to follow. I think the best thing a teacher can learn is when to teach, and it's not all the time. Some people just open their mouth way too much. If someone's teaching something and people are following it, they want to follow it. That's their prerogative. You don't need to butt in and say what your 2 cents. So yes, I just had a lot of issues with that, and so I asked my Sifu. I was like, no, it's happening too often, and I don't feel saying you're wrong. I would never say you're wrong. How can I say you're wrong when that's not maybe how your Sifu taught you? So then what happened is he told me that Ganda Koi would never teach those people the real sets because they were not Yapsap Daiji. They were not, how you said, the inner door disciple with the tea ceremony. You know what I'm saying? And with Chao Kern, I call him second father, Baba Yi, all the time instead of Sifu most of the time. And he told me a long time ago, I'm going to just give you everything. I was like, really? Do you want to do the tea ceremony or something? He's like, no, we don't need to. We already have the relationship. What do we need to do that for? And he goes, it just you look bad in front of your Chole Phut people. And, even though I've never done that ceremony, and I don't think Li Kun Hung ever did it either. So, and I kind of feel proud about that because I feel different than most Kung Fu people. I feel like I love it for what it is and what it does. I'm not trying to be part of some group that it's like a cult and I want to make sure that I check all the boxes. I'm not about that. You know how I am. I want to see what's practical, what works, whatever. And if it doesn't, it goes in the garbage. You know what I mean? And with no F's given, as we said earlier,
It's true. It's true. So Joe, let me ask you a question. Let's get on to the second half of the question from what is Tyson Pekar, right? How effective is it for self-defense or fighting? We know the two terms are different, self-defense and fighting. So how effective is it?
Well, first, let me say that it depends on who you're learning it from. Because anything can be effective and anything can be ineffective. Like for me to say like Wing Chun doesn't work would be absolutely ridiculous. Because you could go to one Sifu and he's amazing and another one who's terrible. So let's just get that out of the way. But like other martial arts styles, it has a lot of really amazing, hand-to-hand fighting techniques. And the reason why it got popular is because at the time in the 60s, there was a Hong Kong fighting team fighting a bunch of Thai boxers. And they kept losing, except for Lai Hong, Cho Lei Fut, And that's the guy that Bruce Lee talked about. And I have a lot of stories of that too. But so the Monkey King got very upset and started training his guys really, really hard. And I think for like 9 years in a row, they were first place every time and beat the Thai boxers. My Sifu is like number 5 or 6. Cheng Kun Tai is the first one. And that's why he became really popular as a movie star, because it's like, oh, that's the guy, so he's very lucky because of that, So why is it effective as a fighting style? It's very good at using an entire body for power. But the one thing that it has and utilizes a lot is the toughening skill we call Nan Gong, which is kind of like how we do Samseng. But imagine Samseng for your entire body. So if my entire body is super strong, I could just walk into you and you can throw whatever punch you want and I'm just going to hit you on the knockout button and that's it. So that's their idea, is like super, super strong. And when you hit and kick, you're going to make it count and hurt. And just like ours, Cho Lei Fut, like they love American boxing and Thai boxing and things like that. So they look at things that are effective and they're very objective about it. They're not like, no, it's not Kung Fu. They're like, oh, that's really good. We gotta learn that. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff in there that's crazy Muay Thai. And then I went there, they wanted to learn jiu-jitsu from me in Hong Kong because they started doing Sanshao more than Thai boxing. And they were having an issue with double leg takedowns. And there was one guy I had to like throw a few times to prove to him that it worked. But then they started learning jiu-jitsu from me and they're utilizing it and they love it. You know what I mean? So they have a very good open mind, but they're hardcore trainers, And of course, the 60s and 70s was a different generation. Nowadays, people do it more for a hobby. But again, it depends on your intention, depends on your teacher's ability, and what are you willing to do. And of course, your training brothers, and sisters, and your Sihings. Like you need a team. It's like that village mentality, for all martial arts. But yeah, it's very effective, dude. I mean, very effective and very similar to Cho Lei Fut. And for me, I felt Cho Lei Fut was very repetitive. Like, do we really need 30, 40 hand sets? Do we really need this? Especially when they all have the same exact movement over and over. I feel like there must have been a lot of students that were like, can't we learn something new? And the Sifu was like, yeah, give me 5 minutes. Okay, here we go. We'll put a couple of new moves in there and fool them. And that's why we have so many sets. Or it could be the philosophy of you need repetition in order to get better. You know what I mean? So learning Pekar, there's different techniques, but from the same kind of core, which makes me really feel that Hung Gar, Cho Lei Fut, and all these southern styles really are just northern transplants. Because we all have Chen Kun Dai Ma, which is long arms and wide stances. You know what I mean? So in my, I sometimes feel like Indiana Jones when I'm learning. I feel like I'm an archaeologist trying to I don't want you to tell me what it is. I want to figure it out on my own. And that's something I learned from Lee Kun Hung as well as Chow Kung. Sometimes it just hit me in the head. What do you think? I guess I have to think. And when I go to Brazil, there's people down there doing stuff, dude. They have no idea why they're doing it. So it's amazing to me that someone can have the power to show you something and get you to do it and train it all the time and not even understand what it is. So it's insane.
That's mind-blowing. That in itself is absolutely mind-blowing. So, Joe, to recap, right? To that question, what is Tyson Pekar? Seriously, I really love the way how you put it. You put it, Tyson Pekar Mun is the personal expression of Ganta Koi and Chan Sao Chung. Personal martial expression of the two. That's a great definition. And with your explanation, I can see it. I understand that completely. Then speaking to its efficacy for fighting as well as self-defense, very similar to Charlie Foot, you had said, when with whole body mechanics and so on like that, using the waist, long arms, long stances. I understand. That is great. That is great. So, if you don't mind me asking, going on to that third question, right? In your opinion, what is the hardest part to developing Kung Fu, Joe?
Well, that's a really good question. I think the hardest part is to continue doing it over a long period of time. That's the really hardest part. You know what I mean? We already know it takes hard work. We know it takes dedication. As you've seen, it takes a lot of thinking. You can't just blindly follow it. What is your intention? Is it just for a hobby? Then this conversation doesn't matter to you. You know, if you just want to be a Sifu, then maybe you really need to rethink. Because I think just like a king shouldn't want to be king. A king should, be king because they deserve to be king. I would say consistency is the hardest thing. Because life gets in the way. A lot of the smart people don't do Kung Fu for a very long time because they have to go get a real job and start a family and enjoy life, So it's a sacrifice. You have to sacrifice. If you want to be really, really good, if you want to understand a lot of it, it's a sacrifice because you're going to have to work hard, obviously. You're going to have to be consistent and you're going to make lots and lots and lots of mistakes and you're going to piss a lot of people off. You're going to burn a lot of bridges. You're going to be involved in politics. You're going to be involved in a whole bunch of stuff that you never knew that was ever going to happen. Sometimes I joke around saying, I wish I would have taken psychology classes, because you're dealing with a lot. It's people, people are people. No matter where you go, it's the same thing. And that's why when I meet people and I read people, my idea is, what is this person's intention? If you think about most of the Kung Fu instructors we know, what is their intention? I honestly don't spend a lot of time on Facebook and Instagram anymore because I'm tired of I love all my Kung Fu friends. They're just, the way they post, it's just absolutely insane. You can tell it's just very self-centered. Like, look at what I do and look at this and that. And then sometimes Joe Keit does this and Joe Keit does that, like talking in third person even, like, oh man, so you got to become enlightened as a martial artist, if you're gonna do it in the middle path and do it with less vanity, because like a lot of the things that are in those brochures that the martial arts schools give to you are not found in those schools. You know what I mean? Let's be honest, and I try to protect my students from those kind of things, but I also try to protect them from my own opinion too. You know what I mean? Because I've made tons of mistakes, trust me. So yeah, I would say sacrifice is the most important thing. I've heard other people on your, because I'm a big fan of your show, by the way. I think it's beautiful that you're doing what you're doing because it's wonderful to be able to find something positive or interesting, to the passions and to the interests that we have. So it's really nice to see all these other martial artists that I've never heard of, and some of styles I've never even heard of, like when you had the Indian martial arts, and man, it's insane. I know you had another monkey Kung Fu guy on here, so it's cool to hear his perspective. It's just really, really cool. And I really hope that you continue to do it, maybe even get into deeper conversations and go back with all those people. So it's great. But, sacrifice, man, it's not always going to be fun. It's not always going to be, puppy dogs and ice cream. Sometimes it's going to be very difficult. And you got to be ready and you got to be able to sacrifice. I've lost a lot of relationships, a lot of friendships, a lot of things for Kung Fu, and I could easily sit here and get mad and blame it, but it's my own choice, you know what I mean? And it led me to where I'm at now, and what's about to come, I have no idea. So I'm just here with what I have and just focus on the future, because the future is the windshield and the past is the rear view mirror. So the windshield's bigger for a reason, you know what I mean?
Seriously, Joe, I really do admire the way your outlook on life. I like the way, that you have taken all of your experiences, you've analyzed them, and then you've come out with this one specific type of outlook, right? And I respect it. I absolutely do. So that was going to bring us into our fourth question. It's a brilliant segue, if I do say so myself, right? So how has your martial training in both right? Well, actually, not in both, but with all your martial training, including the Taekwondo, the Karate, the Jiu-Jitsu, right? How has all of that influenced your professional career?
Ooh, well, I'm not just a teacher of martial arts, but I'm also a firefighter. And I made that decision because it took me, to the age of 35 to realize I got to start thinking of myself, because, Kung Fu schools are wonderful and great, but, if they can't provide a career for you, then you need to do other things. And that's why I wanted to find something that I could wake up every day and be happy for. But at 35 years old, going back to school was not easy. Being one of the oldest guys in boot camp, fire academy, was definitely not easy. I was very confident because of Kung Fu, and Kung Fu had taught me so many things that I find that helped me through, and I'll explain Fire Academy as well as teaching, but like Fire Academy, I was used to pain and suffering, you know what I mean? So I was used to that. I was able to get through that. I was face to face with all of my weaknesses, and I think jiu-jitsu really helped me with that, because some people cannot accept the fact that they can't win over and over and over again. If I roll with you and I tap you out every time, your reaction will be different from the next person's reaction. Your reaction might be like, damn, Joe got me every time. Like, I got to learn this stuff, and one day I'm going to get him. Okay, that's a good attitude. The other person might be like, no, I don't want to do it. Because what they're doing is they're fighting with their pride. You know what I mean? Like, they can't believe that they have failed so miserably, and they'll take the failure rather than having failure is not an option, which is something, actually my stepmother, Shelly, told me one time. She's like, I was in Fire Academy, and it was just like, my feet were completely blistered up, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to go back to this place. And she, and my mom was very concerned, like, just quit. And my stepmom was like, hey, failure is not an option. And a light bulb went off, and I hung up the phone, and failure has never been an option. You know what I mean? And, it's that is very important. Failure is not an option. You might lose today, but if you don't give up, then you didn't fail. You know what I mean? It's really, really important. And then in Fire Academy, the easiest things were like when the instructors would time us and have us do drills, and sometimes it'd be just you by yourself with like 6 instructors watching you. So, I'm used to performing in front of thousands of people. This was like nothing to me, you know what I mean? And then, like even on the job now, there's been times where like we're on there 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in full gear, just working. And between Kung Fu, firefighting, and now even taiko drumming, like I just have come to the conclusion I'm never going to feel great as I do these things. I just have to learn how to work while feeling like crap. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? And then the other thing is in firefighting too, like I tend not to think about me being a firefighter too much, because there are people just like Kung Fu that, I'm a firefighter, have a red pickup truck, and they have like a paramedic kit in the back, and they're they're wearing the shirt every day, like they're very proud of it, which is fine, But if it becomes like your entire life, that's just not for me, I like to be uniquely myself, and these are things that I am involved in. Just like martial arts to me is just a tool. You ask me what's better, like Wing Chun or Tole Foot, well, I don't know. If I need a screwdriver, I'll grab my screwdriver. If I need a wrench, I'll grab my wrench. But I think more like that, so it's a little bit different, But I also understand the importance of trying to be a better role model. I never really felt like I had to do that. But, after teaching kids for so many years, they just, and you being a father and a teacher, you understand, you can't just say what you want to say all the time. You know what I mean? For example, owning a martial arts school, you want to know the quickest way to lose all your students? Post about politics and religion and social issues.
Very true.
Yeah. So we're big, I as a firefighter, I can't do that. You know what I mean? If I talk about how I feel with certain things, and a person that is my patient knows that, like, they're not going to want me, and you know how it is today. There's no, like, everyone's friends. It's either this side or that side with a lot of things. That's really sad. So I try to tend to like watch and listen to things that have to do with my life rather than the rest of the world. I don't have cable TV. I don't watch a lot of stuff like that. I'll look into things when I need to, but the only thing I really need to know is traffic and weather. You know what I mean? Other than that, if things go really bad, I'll just put my clothes on my back and start walking, and be a Ronin like we all dream about, But yeah, so being a role model, learning how to work in terrible situations, failure is not an option. You know what I mean? And then also understanding people's mentality, because understanding people's mentality can make you a better teacher. How does someone interpret information? Do they need to see it? Do they need to feel it? Do you have to explain it to them several times? Is there a way to get them to learn faster? Sometimes you can tell someone's emotionally not in the right spot, and then you have to give them a pep talk. You really have to help people remove all of their vices and remove all of their attachments. That way they can just be who they are and receive the information, or just enjoy the moment. Like, yeah, tomorrow might be raining, but today it's sunny, so let's enjoy the sunshine. And if today's raining, don't worry, tomorrow it'll be sunny. So like this kind of mentality, so there's a lot. We can go on for hours talking about this thing, but and that's how I am, and that. Like, everything I do is related to the martial arts. Even writing music, I'm doing a lot of music lately, playing taiko. We're starting a Norse Viking warrior group now, writing music again and taking singing lessons, so, you can never stop learning, so like sometimes when you say like disciple or Sifu or the master grand, like these words I don't even use anymore in my mind. Like they're meaningless now, because all I can do is share something with you. You know what I mean? That's it. Like, I can try and get more involved in helping you, but eventually you're going to have to do it on your own. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you can give the horse water or lead him to drink, but like you have to do the drinking. So, I can't accept credit for all of the successes of my students and things like that, And then the other thing I learned about, from my martial arts training is the ability to let go. Like, because I actually learned this on my own, because I learned it the opposite way. I learned, a lot of Chinese teachers and Kung Fu teachers, martial arts teachers, they get very upset when their students leave, for example, and I was one of those too. I would, like, they break your heart, Now it's like, if they leave, I'm very happy. Like, no problem. Like, if that's your journey, that's your journey. You're always welcome back. You know what I mean? So the ability to let go, the ability to detach, the ability to go, you know what, I'm just happy that we had this time together. You know what I mean? So I've had to like unlearn a lot of things that I picked up on just from being around it in order to be where I'm at right now. And a lot of it is for my own sanity and happiness. You know what I mean? And so and these are things that are very important that I teach to my students. That I try to protect them so they don't necessarily have to walk in the same path as me, which has been just hard,
I can speak to that. It's funny when you said that, talked about that ability to let go, I'll smile. I don't know if I smiled, but it felt like I smiled. And the reason being is because I remember this lesson from 2004 that you had taught me, and it was one of the nuances of the Chunlan technique, right? And I remember when it was Chunlan and then draw it back, right? And when we draw it back, you had taught us what we were doing wrong was pressing down with the index finger, right? And I remember you telling me quite plainly, let go. Don't put too much pressure, or don't put any pressure on the index finger. Let go. I was like, So that's a memory I've had of you teaching me that from 2004, Joe. Right, so
yeah, that's awesome. I still teach that. And honestly, I was one time somebody tried to rob me, and I was grabbing their arms to stop them from punching me, and they were still punching me with the other hand, and I froze. Like, this hand froze because I was grabbing too tight. So if I would have maybe had grabbed less, or not completely just like how a normal person does, I would have been able to get out of it a little faster. I did eventually figure it out after a couple shots and hit the guy, and then my friends came. But and again, I might be wrong. This is just things I've learned from different people. But the Mantis style, when they grab, they don't necessarily use the finger. And Hungar spends so much time with this mental connection between the index finger and the brain. And they're doing their He Gong. So yeah, if you don't fully commit you're good, and a lot of Kung Fu styles, actually fighting styles, come from weapons first. Like you notice, like the hands like this is a shield, this is the sword, and it wasn't until they started getting involved with like Western boxing do you see us adopting into that, So a lot of Kung Fu styles don't favor grappling, they don't want to get that close. First, let's use the weapons. And if that doesn't work, okay, then hands. We don't want to roll around on the ground because 3 or 4 people are going to come with other weapons and take care of you. It wasn't until you said, okay, let's get 2 people in a ring and anything goes and no one can interfere, then we start to see this amazing jiu-jitsu and MMA grow. And it's fascinating for what it is, but again, it is a certain tool for a certain thing. It's not the be-all, end-all of everything, Hey, that rhymed. Certain tool for a certain thing.
I like that.
Not the be-all for everything.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that concept of it's a tool, right? I'll use it when I need it for that specific job. I like it. I like it. It's a great mentality to have. It's an absolutely awesome mentality to have.
Yeah, because your tool. But let's just talk about that for a second. Like you could have this hammer that's old and ugly and build me a beautiful house, and I could be like enamored with the hammer or enamored by you. What is the choice? And a lot of people make the mistake of, I want to buy that hammer. Like what? And that's how it is with martial arts. Oh, Bruce Lee, Wing Chun, everybody went to Wing Chun, but we don't really see him doing Wing Chun at all in his movies. Barely. You know what I mean? So like people just automatically, they don't think a lot. They just think single focus. Like, well, if the same thing as in the fitness industry, if I were to make some kind of like Sao Choi machine, every Kung Fu person would buy it. Oh, if you just do this every day, your Sao Choi would be strong. Okay, they buy that, put it under the bed, never use it, because the purchase of it makes them feel like they've attained it.
It's funny. Yeah. It's funny, man. The psychology of things. I understand that earlier comment. You wish you had gone into psychology before.
Yes.
Everything like ties right back in, man. I'm serious. Mm-hmm. So, seeing as how you wanted to do psychology before, and we're very cerebral with our thoughts now, especially as we've gotten older, Joe. I have to ask you this, right? If you could teach the new generation of martial artists only one thing, my friend, it could be technique, it could be philosophy, what would it be?
It would be detachment. The ability to hear something, see something, or feel something, and just take a moment for a second and not take it personally. To look at it and go, okay, what is the intention of this? Why is this happening? Is this person just angry and upset? Because maybe the right thing for me to do is when this person throws anger at me is to be the better person and to console them. Maybe they're lashing out because they need help, or maybe something happens and it costs a lot of money or it destroys you for some reason. And you could go, well, it didn't work. So what? What can I learn from it, and what can I do next? And to not be to not really let emotions get involved with it, because using emotions to make decisions is like being hungry and going shopping. You're going to buy a bunch of crap you don't need. You know what I mean? You're going to say a lot of things that you wish you never said. I've been in these situations where, even though I feel like I was right, I would rather not have to live with these regrets. You know what I mean? So it would be better to, and at the time of a lot of these things that have happened in the past when I visit them, I feel like I did stop and try to give the benefit of that. Like, I feel like I did everything I possibly could. You know what I mean? But then I go, well, maybe I should have just went back a little further. And why was I even in this situation to begin with? Like, is this really what I wanted? So like, if you could at that moment have the ability to stop and objectively look at a situation, you can decide on a better answer. But if you also push yourself up into the air with eagle view, you can see in front of you, behind you, and to the side of you, and go, what will this situation change for my future? And how will it affect how I felt from my past? Am I making the same mistake? Am I going to, do something better? Or am I really slipping out of the way, avoiding it altogether? But I see way too many people perplexed and being held back by stuff that is inside of their head. If you could just eliminate all of that and be completely free and completely happy, and there was no chance of failure, what would you do? So that's the whole purpose of that. So that's why I really like to read like serious stuff on the very first Buddha. And when you read a lot about him, you realize a lot of the religious practices are not in line with it. You know, religion has become created because people need that in order to feel comfortable with their habits and their practices. But when you really look at the writings of it, it's complete liberation from a lot of the things that people are doing. You know what I mean? So I would try, and I do try, by first, you know, giving people, like for our My Skill Week, we teach, you know, respect, you know, determination, discipline, and passion as kind of like the engines of how to be successful. Respect, you need to respect yourself, and you got to respect other people if you want to, you know, make it in this world. Determination, if you decide that this is really what you want, nothing should stop you. Discipline, what's the recipe for chocolate chip cookies? That way it tastes exactly the same. What's the recipe? What's the step-by-step process to get where I want to go? What's the step-by-step process to become a firefighter or to become a doctor? What is the step-by-step process? And even when I don't feel like doing it, I have to do it. And then passion. If you're not going to do it with all your heart, then don't even do it at all. Because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So like, and I'm guilty of that too. I can be super lazy, you know, and then like, oh, damn it. But you know, instead of going, you're a lazy piece of crap, go, okay, you were lazy, but now you saw that you're lazy. At least you saw it. If you didn't see that you were lazy, then, you know, you wouldn't know to continue going. You know? And then in other things in life, you know, I don't step on the pedal all the way anymore. I try to maintain endurance. You know, as a firefighter, you know, I see like a lot of my friends working out, training and doing all these things, and then, you know, at the end of the day, they're like, woo, you know, and then we get a fire at 2:30 in the morning. I'm chilling, dude. I'm chilling. I'll do, when I'm at that place, I am thinking like, okay, eat, take a nap. I want to be fresh because I know it's not going to happen when I want it to happen. It's going to happen when I least expect it. And I am trained and being paid to be on point at any given time. So, you know, and again, like, you know, you can look at like any job as an annoyance. This is annoying. This is BS. You know? Or you could be like, okay, let's see what I can do. You know, I'm coming fresh. You know, so I think this is very important. You know, and of course I do a lot of different things, and it's like a sword, right? You put it in the fire, you put it in the ice, you keep banging it because you want it to be strong, like, you know. So, you know, that's why having a martial arts school, especially with children, it's so important to be able to teach the tough lessons that parents are afraid for their kids to learn in a very loving and comforting environment. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we'll get you ready. And are you ready now? And when you're ready now, then you're going to have to bang, you know what I mean? And, you know, going back to the whole bullying thing, you know, you can try to avoid or like, no, don't do that to me. Like how a lot of these child psychologists, no, I'm not going to let you bully me. And then the kid comes and punches you in the face. What are you going to do? Sometimes you have to punch back, you know, sometimes you earn respect with 5 knuckles, you know, or 4 knuckles, you know, so, you know, we can exhaust all the options beforehand, but like, you know, we need to remember what it is that our ancestors did in order to survive in times that were super turbulent, because it could return to that one day. You know how it is in Florida. People beating the crap out of each other over a bag of ice when there's no electricity. So it's still relevant.
People beating themselves over toilet paper, bro. I can't.
Or even driving in the road rage, you know. So it's like, you know. So this is the first step, in my opinion, is when something happens or you approach something, objective reality, disconnect, no emotion, bird's eye, eagle view, and then make your decision, you know. And if it's martial arts, it's what we were talking about earlier. I could teach you all kinds of fancy stuff, and you won't be able to use it. You know, but if I can share with you how to process, how to think, how to test something out and see if it works, then you can always go back, and then you'll see that you'll probably eliminate 50% of the knowledge that you have, right? We've talked about this with certain weapons and things. I'm like, if you're doing flowers with like a Kwando or hook swords, like, you know, I'm out. I'm just going to be honest. I'm out. You know, I am not wasting my time. You know, I don't need to look pretty. You know, I'm beyond that now. I'm going to get older, and just nothing else that I can do besides try to stay in shape. You know, and I just have no desire to do that kind of thing anymore. So it's all about intention and what you want, and that's why I accept when other people want their thing. And for me, there's certain things I like and I don't like. But yeah, teaching the next generation how to control their emotions by being, objective, but also detaching. And that was the secret Buddha came up with. You want to end suffering? Well, don't be attached to anything. You won't miss it.
That's true.
We came in this world naked and alone, and we're going to leave this world naked and alone. And why are we upset with that? That's why, like, now I'm studying a lot of Norse mythology and things like that. And I find it fascinating that lullabies were actually a way to teach children how to accept death. So if you notice, all of our lullabies have like something really bad happen, like Humpty Dumpty falls off the wall, had a great. What the hell is going on? Well, this is a way of teaching children that death is a natural part of life. That way it doesn't destroy us mentally as it does. Every time someone loses a pain, like if I lose my mom, I know I'm going to be destroyed, but we have to continue. We have, this is life. Hopefully we'll all be together in the afterlife. That's what I really hope, train with Bruce Lee and Lee Kun Hung in heaven, but like, until that time, we have to do the best we can here.
That, my friend, is one of the most beautiful answers to that question, right? Detachment.
Thanks, bro.
Detachment. It's great. It's great. Mm-hmm. I can't even say any more to it because that's so beautiful. Nothing more needs to be said about that, right? So, of course, we've gotten to the last question. My dear friend, Sifu Joe, how can you be contacted if someone needs to contact you? They watch the interview, they say, this guy has impressed me so much, I need to talk to him. How do they do that?
Well, they can call you. You're my brother. No. I have one school in Boynton Beach that Sifu Jacob Isaacs is pretty much running. I'm there like 2 or 3 times a week. So joekeitmartialarts.com. We took a real huge hit after COVID, so we had switched to a children-only martial arts school and brought in some people to help us out with that. But we, for the past, I want to say 1.5 to 2 years, have been going back to the roots, making it very traditional. We have classes Monday through Saturday, and we have 4 age groups. And adults, we have adults back, and we're teaching traditional Chole Fat as well as Tai Sing Pekar workshops and different things like that. So you can always go to the website. If you just want to follow me personally, I tend to be on Instagram a little bit more, and it's Joe Keit, I think .tigers CLF. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that before we go, if that's okay.
No problem.
One of the things that keeps me going is my love and memory for Paul Fraga, because he was a very important person to me. Always had my back. Always was. He was my lion dance partner when I was in my 20s. Taught me how to fight. Really, he really got me to do things I never thought I could do. And I don't feel like he got the respect that he wanted, when he was teaching here in America. And then he started teaching in Brazil, and he was trying to do the right things and had a lot of issues as well. It was getting really good. And then, I don't really want to get into the politics of the problems that happened, but I just felt like he never really got what he wanted. And then, his personal life, he ignored his, maybe he could have been a better husband and father and stuff like that. So I just saw this guy trying so hard and just never really being able to see his dreams come alive. So he really loved these guys in Brazil. And I tried to repair relationships, and I was really done. That honestly, I could retire right now and I would be fine. I don't need people to think I'm great or worship me, or I don't need any of that. So he really wanted to bring our 2 schools together. I don't know if, can you hear me?
Yep.
Are you there? Okay, because I started freezing on my own. He really wanted, when we were both, on our own, he wanted to bring our 2 schools together under one association. And when I hear association, all I think is politics, and I don't want to do that. I can barely run a school, let alone run an association. So I was like, I'm not the guy you should be asking for. But really what he wanted is he just wanted me and him to be united and our students to be united. And I was like, well, they already kind of are. Do we need a name for it? If you come to my school, you teach. I don't care. I'm not jealous of you, or I think it's beneficial for my students. And if I go to Brazil, he's the same way. Hey, Joe, show them this. Sure. You know what I mean? So I just agreed, okay, we'll do it, And I just was trying to think of a cool name. And he would always say to me, you have to be strong, like a tiger, like a tiger, like a tiger. So I was like, Tigers of Chole Fat. And I like the idea. So the idea behind tigers with an S is it's plural. It doesn't mean only me or only him. It could be anybody that isn't, a Cholifut person in our. We had to do it in our family. That way we could at least have quality control. You know what I mean? At first, I was like trying to just do it as an association for all Cholifut people, so we can get together and train and stuff. But it's just there's just too many egos, and it's not for me. Like if I was like some happy, positive party planner, maybe I would do that. But I think I enjoy intimate conversations like this more. I benefit from it more. So I was like, okay, tigers are Cholifut. So we started doing things, and all his students were on board. Our students were on board, trying to make logos, and then he passed away, and it was just really, really hard. I actually had to have the funeral in my school. That was one of the hardest days of my life, and I still think about him every day, trying not to cry. But so I felt like I had to, keep this thing going for him, And right away, his students were reaching out. They wanted to continue their training and continue learning. So I was like, okay. I had another student who came out of nowhere, from Brazil, and I was going to pass him the ball, so he wound up staying. And he wound up forming Tigers of Cholifut. And now there's 5 of them. There's 5 schools, and they're amazing. I just came back from there. We had like 75 people, I believe, in a workshop. Thank God I taught them early how to help me, because that would have sucked. But they are so hungry in Brazil, you know what I mean? And they've had their little experiences now where they've had good teachers and bad teachers. They see the politics, they see this. So, they're just a very passionate people that love to compete and love to do things, So I had some other students from other schools come, and they 3 or 4 days later competed, got first place using the double daggers that I taught. So it's like, I'm glad I did an objective check. I'm glad I detached for a second and go, okay, how can I do this? And Tigers of Cholifut. Like if you see my logo, it says Tigers of Cholifut on one side, but then it says Joe Keit Martial Arts on the other. So they all wanted logos, and I was like, all right, let's create a logo, but let's give identity to each individual Sifu in school. Well, I don't want to be some dictator like, oh, okay, it's the Joe Keit Cholifut Martial. I created my school Joe Keit Kung Fu at first with my father's, his wisdom. He was like, I was like, oh, I'm going to call it this or maybe call it that. He's like, why are you going to call it that? People are going to look your name up on Google and they're going to find out who you are, and then they're going to want to go, oh, okay, Joe Keit Kung Fu. Then I had a guy come in and consult it. No, change it to not your name, JK Martial Arts or something like that. And there was like 3 fat guys with karate outfits to have that name. And then I just, we started losing business, I look at my Siheng John Wei, he doesn't have a problem using his name, So, but I do like the fact of Tigers of Cholifut is the association, and then you can keep your identity, keep your school. And they do that with the lion dances. They have different lion dance outfits, but they have their logo, the Tigers logo. And then we have like a universal Tigers logo as well that we originally started out with. But if you look up Tigers of Cholifut, you'll find a lot of information. If you're interested in seeing like more of like the techniques that we do and the forms that we do, there's tons of stuff that I used to put on YouTube. There's even some Joe Keit like vlogs that we used to do to try to kind of pass on not only the what's going on in the school, but the culture of the school and like the philosophy of things. Sometimes we joke around, but sometimes it's a little bit serious as well. So there's a lot of information out there, and I hope somebody gets a little something out of it.
Contact information for Sifu Joe Keit will be in the description down below, and also in the description down below will be a link for Feiyue shoes. So if you need Feiyue shoes, go ahead, click the link down below, get the best prices, the best deals, all at Feiyue shoes. Sifu Joe Keit, thank you very much for the time that you've taken to speak with me, Bruno. You already know how long it's taken for me to get you on here. So trust me,
I apologize.
All of your insights.
I apologize for that too. It's just my personal life, divorce, all kinds of different things that have been happening. So, I've been really relying on my training to stay focused and stay sane and make music and be happy. But I've been watching you since day one, and I'm just so proud of you. And we've had conversations, and I've told you things. I really think this podcast is very Very informative, very good, and so important. So I really pray and hope that you'll continue to do it and expand upon it and revisit a lot of those amazing people that you've already talked to. And it's just wonderful. And I really think it could be super successful, honestly. Yeah, you're a great guy. I've known you for over 20 years. You're an amazing brother. And thanks for always being there for me too. Like you're a true friend, true brother.
Hey man, when the best way to say it is, you reciprocate the feeling, or you reciprocate what has been given to you. Ever since 2004, bro, since we met at Voodoo Lounge, you remember that night, man? Voodoo Lounge
Yes.
in 2004 in downtown Fort Lauderdale. Ever since then, you've shown nothing but friendship to me, shown nothing but
Yes.
friendship back to you, my brother.
And can I just tell the viewers about a funny story that I saw that night? One of the reasons why I approached you is because I saw how quickly you were able to take somebody out. Like you didn't hurt them, you prevented them from hurting themselves. But I was like, this guy is a badass. And I came over and I talked to you. And I think I was like, hey, martial arts. And we just started talking. And I was just trying to recruit you. I was like, I need this guy on our team, like I really. And, you were always more interested in Tai Chi because, you're obvious, like, I know you. You're a freaking warrior. Like people might look at you and go, oh, he's such a nice guy. Yeah, there's a reason why you're nice, because if you have to pull the samurai vibe out, it's all over for a lot of people, So I was very impressed with you that night, but also your ability to control, and then, you've always been just, so passionate about Tai Chi. So I'm really happy to see and I think I introduced you or told you about your Sifu, right? Your Wu style Sifu. So, and just to see you so happy and gaining a lot of experience and knowledge from that. And even now being a Sifu of it, I'm just so proud of you, and it couldn't happen to a better person. And it's so organic. Everything you're doing is organic, and you've told me about expanding and opening a school one day. And I reminded you, I said, if you really love your martial art, just do your martial art. If you get into business, it's a business. Like you have to be a business person, or else, just rent a warehouse that's very cheap and you don't mind if you make money or not, That's my advice if you want to train the way we do,
Oh, and believe me, Joe, I've taken a lot of that advice into consideration, my friend. Trust me.
Sweet.
And I appreciate every time that we talk. Hey, thank you very much for coming on the cast, my sir.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again.
Respect.
Take care.
Thank you very much.